In life, you can control only one thing, and that is your attitude. Everything else, my friend, is not up to you. Now, your attitude is basically a combination of the way that you think, feel, and act. And that will decide the outcome in all areas of your life. There are basically 7 areas of life, but your attitude is the only thing that you have control over. There is no ways that you can control the way that other people think, feel, and act, or governments, what they are going to do, or the economy, what's going to happen, or the inflation rate, any of that. You've got absolutely no control over it. So your attitude is what's going to determine your success in life. Now, success is a progressive realization of a worthy goal. In other words, it starts with setting the goal. So if your attitude is, but I don't need a goal and I don't need to have a path in order to get to my goals, because it's a progressive realization. It's a step-by-step plan that you have to have in place, or a strategy that you need to have in place in order to achieve your goal. If you're not going to have that attitude that I want to become successful, I need to achieve my goals, then, my friend, you're not going to achieve those goals, because if you haven't got goals, if you haven't set the goals, how are you going to achieve them? I've got an acronym for attitude, and the way that it works is the first A stands for accountability. Everything starts with accountability. Accountability is when you start taking responsibility for your actions and for your decisions that you've got in life. Responsible for the way that I think, feel, and act. The moment that we understand that we have got control over that, then we set aside, for example, in the formula for riches, you're going to find that there's a part where we have to take responsibility to look at the results. The results if the results are not there, it tells you something. Now, I can have the attitude, say, for example, I need 50% growth on my investment, and I'm not getting the 50%, to say, yeah, it's okay. But it's because I'm not taking accountability. I can't take my money, give it to someone else, thinking that I'm accountable because I've taken my money, give it to someone else, and then they're not getting the results. Accountability means that in investments, there's only 2 parts. There's the risk part and the growth part. And I need to take responsibility for both of them. Otherwise, I'm not accountable for my investment. And I see very few people actually are doing that. The moment that you say, okay, if I'm not getting the results that I'm getting, in other words, I become accountable for not getting those results, it means now I can do something about it. I need to change something. I need to change the way that I think. I need to change the way that I feel about investments or about learning new skills. I need to change the way that I act. Instead of giving my money to someone else, I'm going to start handling it because I'm going to gain the skills to be able to do it. So accountability is crucial in order to adopt the right attitude and to understand attitude. The first T stands for tenacity there, and in this acronym. And tenacity is basically showing persistence and determination in order to get that. And the quickest way for me to be able to do that is simply to start forming a habit. If you do certain things at a certain time of the day, it becomes easier and easier. And that's going to help with this tenacity, with this persistency to do things. I see so many people, they buy a course and then they give up after a week or two. It's because they haven't got this tenacity, this determination. Set aside half an hour a day, just half an hour a day. Make it for personal development. Now, I'm putting aside, for example, on spiritual development, more than an hour per day. But put aside that half an hour, and irrespective of what happens, focus that half an hour to that skill or that you want to learn, or that can improve you to become a better version of yourself. It's that simple. And by doing that, and not necessarily fixate on the outcome that you want to see the results, because if the expectation is high and you haven't got the skills, you're not going to get it. And that's going to lead to frustration. And then you're going to give up because you are not persistent and you do not show the determination. The next T, then, I relate to trust. And when I'm saying trust, we normally think it's trust in other people, but I'm referring here more to trust in yourself. In other words, building the confidence in yourself to be able to do the things that you say that you are going to do and do the things that is important to you. Now, that way of building confidence, the best way that I found over the last 67 years of my life is to develop yourself, is to have a program or a system in place on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis where I can develop the 7 areas of my life. For example, in my spiritual journey, you have to develop. It's not something that's going to happen automatically. The same with your health. It is not something, if you sit back and you don't care, and you haven't got the skills to be able to say, this is what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and then to do it, that is where you build the trust, and that is where you gain the confidence. The same with investments. If you've got an investment and you are not prepared to take control of that investment because you don't trust yourself, you need to build the confidence. And the confidence is actually very simple, because the moment that I understand that if I do not know what I'm doing, then I'm taking a risk. So I need to understand. But by understanding, I need to know how it works. And by knowing how it works, I'm building that trust. And therefore, I'm building the confidence in my ability to handle that. The I then stands for integrity. That's the moral as well as the ethical principles. And I hope that you could see how all of this comes together in attitude. Because if I say that I'm going to do something and I do that, it means I've got integrity. It can be moral, it can be ethical. That integrity is crucial. Last year, I set a goal for 360 days to work on a specific trait or a specific concept, right? And I've done that, which built the confidence that we talked about. But also, if I say that I'm going to bring out for the rest of this year a video each and every week, then I do that. Why? Because I've got integrity. I know that if you say something, then you do it. The way that you think, feel, and act comes out in terms of your day-to-day dealings with yourself, but the rest of the world will be able to pick that up and see that, and that is going to build the trust that we spoke about. The T then, the next T, there's a lot of T's in attitude. I see it as teamwork. The teamwork is a collaboration between people. For example, in your team, if you're working in a team, either you're the employee or you're the employer, by showing the right attitude towards that team or towards that relationship, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to get things done than not to be part of a team. Right. The U then stands for understanding, and understanding is also part of my ruler's principle. And it forms the basis of, let's call it my investment strategy, because my investment strategy, the intelligent use of limited resources to go from where you are to where you want to be in the shortest possible time with the least amount of risk. Risk is when you do not understand. In other words, if something does not work, it's because you don't understand it. If there's a problem that's showing up in your life, it's because you do not have the skills, you don't understand how to solve that problem. The universe is actually showing you, my friend, this is what you need to focus on. So we need to give thanks for the problems that we've got in our lives, because that means that is the universe's way to show us what we need to work on. To work on that means that we need to understand ourselves and the situation that we're in. The moment that we understand risk, now we can gain the skills around that to mitigate or to eliminate the risk. By doing that, our risk comes down. But it's not only applicable when it comes to finances, it's also applicable when it comes to relationships. It's also applicable when it comes to our health and our well-beingness, right? So understanding plays a crucial role. But at the same time, when we're dealing with other people, we need to get ourselves in their shoes. In other words, we have to demonstrate empathy and consideration when it comes to other people. The D, the last thing, then stands for discipline, and that is, how do we maintain self-control and order? And now we're going back to the way that I think, feel, and do. And the discipline shows itself clearly in the doing, in the acting part. If you say that you're going to do something, just do it. Now, if we look at this, the way that you think, feel, and do, it's actually what we call a cybernetic loop. Because the moment that a habit is formed, you're not going to pay any attention. It is unconsciously that you think, feel, and do. So something triggers you. You say, I haven't got money. The moment that you say, I haven't got money in order to do something, guess what's going to happen? You're going to react that there is no money or that you need money to make money. A simple example. So you have to break that attitude that I need money because otherwise, or I need money to get somewhere in my life. It is simply not true. The truth is you need the skills to be able to do it. So you have to break that attitude, that limiting mindset. And the way to do it is to change your attitude. So the moment that I change my attitude, I say, okay, I haven't got the money, but I do have the time, right? I do have the time. I do have the capacity to change my attitude. In other words, my mindset. I do have the effort, the willingness to put in the energy, and I am going to learn the specific skill. Therefore, I can change my mindset about I don't need that money. I can use my limited resources, my time and my effort to make the money, to learn the skill that is valuable to someone else, where I can exchange that skill, that time and effort in order to gain the income so that I can have the money. Now I can start. But that's going to take discipline. It's going to take self-control, right? If you do not know how to control yourself, you're going to have a problem. And the only way to control yourself is to have the right attitude. So the way that I've defined attitude is there's actually 4 classes of attitude. There's laggers, ziggers, zaggers, and blizzards. Now the first 2 is where you unconsciously start doing things according to what you believe. And what you believe, 90% of that to 99% is not true. It's simply because you've adopted a certain belief system from your parents, from your peers, from the news, from the financial world, from the educational world. It's simply not true, right? But because you believe that, your attitude is, this is the way that it is. And you're not going to query it because you are not in a growth situation. In other words, you're not taking responsibility to find out if that is really the truth and how that can benefit and help you in order to achieve whatever you want to achieve. The last 2 are the zaggers and the blizzards. And the difference between a lagger and a zigger and a zagger and a blizzard is responsibility. It's the attitude. So the moment that I'm taking attitude and in the attitude, I can learn the skill to bring my risk down to get my growth up. Completely different. But then in that, I've seen and I've experienced this myself in my life. I've thought at a certain point that I am taking responsibility for my finances because I've worked really hard, and then I would give that to a company or an organization in order to make the money for me. But that's the wrong attitude, because that means that I do not need to have the skill. So the moment that I started understanding, but I must get the skill, I have to take that responsibility. Can you see what happens? I moved from not taking responsibility to taking responsibility. But then if you start working on that skill, at a certain point, you're going to understand that you don't need money. You don't need other people's money. You don't need other people's input. You don't need networks. You don't need anything. You can literally rely on yourself to create the kind of life that you want. And that is when you become a blizzard, where you can see an idea, turn that idea into something so valuable that other people are willing to actually pay for that in order to solve their problems. And the moment that you know how to do that, it's an incredible feeling, and that is an incredible attitude to have, to know that I can help unconditionally. It is something amazing, and it shows in the real world as what we call well-being, where you contribute, where you give. And the more you're giving, believe it or not, the more you are receiving. This is an incredible concept to have the right attitude. And by having the right attitude, you know that you can give unlimitless, right? Because what you receive is just blessing upon blessing. So I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson. If you want to make a comment, please feel free to do so. Maybe like this is going to help with the algorithm. Tell me your thoughts about it. In other words, are you dependent on someone else for your future? You've got that attitude that I am not good enough, I can't do anything in my life, I'm basically a victim? Or are you a victor where you know that anything and everything in life was given to you on condition that you change your attitude, that you take the responsibility, and that you apply this acronym in your life? Try it for a week or 2 weeks. Tell me what the outcome of that is going to be. It's going to be interesting.